Hello and welcome to another episode of the All About Ability podcast.
This podcast is sponsored by Caroline Financial, specialists in mortgages and protecting your family's finances. Whether you're looking for the best mortgage for you or want to make sure you and your family aren't struggling if you are seriously ill or pass away, call Caroline Financial on 0141 447 0290 or email advice@carolfinancial.co.uk for more information.
This week we are joined by Caroline Milne, who is a personal trainer and focuses on mindset and helping her clients in the long term. I really enjoyed this discussion, and the way in which she has developed herself and helping other people was really inspiring to me, and I really think there'll be a lot to take from it. We speak on the current situation with the gyms and lockdown and keeping fit and active during this kind of difficult time. She also has her own podcast, Coaching with Caroline Extras, which is on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube as well. So check that out, and it's definitely worth watching. I took a lot from it. I really enjoyed our discussion, and I think you will too. So yeah, enjoy. Okay, so I'm here with Caroline. How are you doing today, Caroline?
Hi, Kieran. I'm perfect. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been really looking forward to this. I think we have a lot in common and see issues the same way, so it'll be interesting to see your point of view on some things and see where we get to. Shout out to Colin Campbell for putting us in touch as well.
The networker, yeah, he's done wonderfully well too. It's taken us a while to set this up, but I'm glad that we are good to go and that we're now kind of getting down into the nitty gritty. You have some really good guests on the last couple of weeks and months, and firstly, apologies, I don't have an Olympic gold medal. I haven't done anything for my country. I haven't published a book. So actually, if anyone has crazy imposter syndrome and am I allowed to swear on this? If I'm shitting myself right now, that's probably why.
Well, that's probably the most complimentary thing anyone's ever said at the start of a podcast so far. So I appreciate that. But you very much fit into what the podcast is about. And it's very much a pleasure to have you, of course. And we just spoke there before recording this, and I think a lot of the things we touched on were really, I found your way of putting it was quite, because I think a lot of personal trainers, right, they speak about these things, but it's very much not in a way that connects with clients. And you seem to have this rapport with your clients where they stay for the long term. Why do you think that actually is?
Why do I think that is? I think, and I would like to think, I might be completely wrong, and actually my clients are probably better placed to talk about this than I am, but I like to think that I've got a couple more years behind me, shall we say, than perhaps people that are starting off in the industry. And maybe we'll go into this, but I had a whole other career before this, and I think perhaps that's equipped me with, one, a little bit of life experience, but also I very much understand that fitness isn't the be all and end all for all of my clients. It's always been my kind of job and my role and my objective to weave their fitness goals and their health goals around what I understand are busy careers, family lives, all these other things, real life. And I think that perhaps sometimes that I don't have this, cut and dry, you must eat chicken, rice, broccoli a couple of times a day, you must be in the gym 6 days a week, you must be I don't really have that with my clients. And I think perhaps that makes, me a little bit more relatable, maybe makes, things a little bit easier, maybe just a little bit more human. Maybe that's all it is.
Yeah. I think it's missing a lot in training, but this idea that you say where you have to be a very specific diet or specific routine, and if you edge out of that in any way, it's lost. And that to me doesn't seem like a very long-term plan. Focusing on mindset and things like that is where the growth comes from. But what actually got you into that side of things? Why is that important to you? And you talked about the career you had before. What made you switch into what you're doing now?
Where do we start? The other thing, it's funny. I host a podcast, but I've never actually done this the other way around. And people always tell me that the intro part where you have to talk about like what, you know, how you got to where you are, etc., is the hardest bit. And I think that's probably true. I have an architecture degree from the Mackintosh School of Architecture. So Glasgow is very much what I would consider my home city. I spent so much flipping time there. So I did my degree in architecture, worked in Glasgow, in London, then laterally in Vancouver, switched from architecture to interior design work. So that was my kind of go-to for a while. Worked out in Canada, loved that. What was going on? I was doing I suppose the gym has always been my escapism, really. It really did offer that. It was, you know, long hours at uni. It was a lot of time sitting at a desk. It was, you know, all-nighters every week, stressful time. I think most students experience that, but architects seem to burden themselves with more of that than I believe they need to, but that's a totally different topic. But anyway, the gym used to be a little bit of escape for me. You know, I'd go into the studio earlier in the morning, I'd get a couple of hours done, I would escape to the gym, you know, 11, 12 o'clock, I'd go back for the afternoon session, I might go to the gym on the way home, and it just offered me this escapism and like physical moving of my body. Don't get me wrong, for the first 5 years I was doing it horrifically. I was running on the treadmill and doing all these, like, you know, just the mistakes you all make when you're starting off in the gym. I hope that's in a wider conversation. I hope that helps fast track my clients a lot more. But anyway, that was kind of my background. And then it's just always really offered me a backbone. It's always been something I've been interested in, whether I've been, you know, photo shoot dieting, so, you know, going quite extreme with it, or whether I've just been doing it from a health perspective. It's varied in intensity over time. But anyway, how did I actually get into it? I was doing a photo shoot cut at the time when I was in Canada, and just for various reasons, I'm one of these people that's quite irritating about knowledge. Like, I like to know stuff, and I wasn't entirely sure about the knowledge that I was being equipped with. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take this into my own hands, and why wouldn't I just, you know, do my PT qualification? If nothing else, I'll just equip myself with a little bit more know-how, and maybe I'll pick up a few tips and it'll be great. I'll just do it. So I'm doing this photo shoot cut. I'm training to be a PT in Canada with a UK company. So I was getting up at 5 to do the webinars, to then go to my real job, to then study over my lunch break, to then go to the gym. You know, it was just a big mashup, and it was just a big, like, you know, it was pretty full on. So what happened after that? Then actually I got made redundant. So it was very much last one in, first one out situation in the design firm. I was the last one in, so off I went. And I find myself over there without a job. And if anyone's been to Vancouver, it's like, it's London prices. Like, it's not cheap. Yeah. So I was like, oh crap, right, okay, I'm gonna have to do something about this. And to be honest, the first thing I did was drink quite a lot of wine. And then once I got myself together, I thought, right, okay, well, you've been forced into this. Why not just make a go of it? Like, honestly, just like, what's stopping you? Nothing now. So I kind of pulled my socks up. I had a couple of weeks left of my qualification, got that under my belt, and literally just threw myself into online coaching. And it's not the way that I would recommend anyone do it. I don't believe that you should online coach before you have worked in a gym, but that wasn't really an option for me at the time. So I threw myself into online coaching and really haven't looked back. Ended up coming back to Scotland, so I'm now based in Dundee. Continued to online coach the whole time. Started in the gym, actually not too far away from here. I think I got off the flight, went for the interview straight away, and then started like the next week. It was a bit of a whirlwind. And then obviously, yeah, started up there, everything was going well. Then COVID hit, that's a whole other situation. And then back online, and now back in the gym, and now half my clients are back online again. Like, it's been a crazy old year. But I was listening to the podcast that you did recently with Gavin Oates about kind of career change and about throwing yourself into things, and a lot of what he said really resonated with me and was very similar to the kind of feelings that I had at the time of, do you know what, there's never a perfect time. And would I have been brave enough to do it on my own had I not been pushed? I don't know. So, there's a blessing in all of that, and I wouldn't change it for anything now, and I couldn't now imagine doing anything else, really. I'd never go back to it.
That's quite an amazing journey you've had. I mean, it sounds like you've always been really busy and really sort of active in terms of actually always just on the move and doing something. You're never really stopping.
Oh my God, to my detriment. I'm taking 3 weeks off this Christmas, and I'm really, really, really going to try and take some holiday. I've just got one of these annoying, one of these kind of type A will go, and then crash. So this is from a personal point of view, something I really have to work on, and I am working on it. But if anyone has ever started a business or, pursuing a venture like that, you want to give everything. It's not really it's a non-negotiable. And to be honest, you put everything you've got into it because you love it, and you really, really do. And maybe it's really cliche to say, but I never felt like it was work. And only recently, the whole COVID thing has been quite testing for everyone in the fitness industry. It's been testing for everyone. And do you know what? It is a little bit of a time to take a tiny step back and have a look at the year in review. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. But generally, yes, it's all pretty go in this camp, I won't lie.
Now, you mentioned COVID there, right? And as you were talking about online coaching, it made me think online coaching is perfect for this scenario in a way of when everything's kind of unsure, you're able to still do everything you want to do online. And so there are differences, but you're starting to kind of see in your situation right now, it's a big benefit.
Absolutely. And I'll be completely honest, everything for online was already set up for me. So when COVID hit, it was really just a case of moving all the girls onto an online capacity, and I already had that kind of, so really it was great. The only thing, I mean, everyone was hit by the initial setback, and it was challenging trying to keep everyone kind of morale high, everyone upbeat, and that was the biggest hurdle really. But we did it so well. We did challenges, groups, Facebook groups, and 4-week challenges, and some of the girls got the best results of the whole year over that COVID period because some of us didn't have any distractions. If you were furloughed and the weather was nice, and why wouldn't you go out for a walk and be training outside and doing all these things? And then eventually, when the restrictions were lifted slightly, I got them out with I went to QuickFit, asked them for a load of spare tires that were lying around the garage, and I got the girls out onto the football field, and we were doing outdoor boot camps. You made it work because, one, what else were you going to do? And it's my responsibility to be offering these opportunities to be staying mentally and physically active and keep mood high. And we all know the benefits of exercise and movement, not just physically, but it was really everyone's chance to kind of I felt it was really personal trainers' chance to step up to the plate and do the job that we should be doing. And okay, it's easy when you've got a fully equipped gym and it's not going to rain on you. Yeah, it's harder when everyone's feeling shit and you're the one that's got to be like, right, come on, let's go. Well, that's what you're there for.
That's a real kind of leadership quality that you showed there as well, in terms of stand up and saying we still need to, things are on hold, but it's still, day to day, you've still got to get the work in and get the progress in. And a lot of growth can be accomplished in isolation as well.
So much growth. And also another thing Gavin Oates mentioned, there's the Legacy, who wrote it, the book about the All Blacks. I actually read that during lockdown, and that was a big kick, being right, okay, you need to step up here, and this is what you should be doing.
No, definitely, I couldn't agree more. You talked about how everyone knows the benefits of exercise, yeah, but it would appear the government.
We need to write a strongly worded email to both Boris and Nicola.
Oh well, it would appear they don't seem to know the benefits entirely. I mean, the facts show that exercise helps decrease the risk by 30%, and there's a bunch of facts out there, but that's something that I really want to focus on because, well, throughout this whole process, I think you're seeing people really struggling with their mental health, and I think the lack of access to gyms completely apart in that. But why do you think there's such a hesitancy to make gyms an essential service?
Well, for one thing, I actually feel very, very guilty because I'm sitting here in Dundee and my gym is open. So I know in Glasgow that is not the case. And I have had moments this week where I've been in the gym and I have genuinely thought, I am so, so fortunate. It's really hammered home to me. A lot of my clients are Glasgow based, Edinburgh, some down in England, and their gyms are about to open, but they have been put back into home workouts. And I have genuinely sat in my gym the last few days and thought I am really, really lucky. And it is somewhere that I go for escapism. It's somewhere that I go for, even though I work there. I train and work in the same place, but it's different. It just offers me that space. The hesitancy to open them, to be honest, I'm not going to claim that I'm any kind of expert about it. I think because there is that lack of evidence across the board, it's a kind of let's play it safe situation, isn't it? Let's just keep everything, it can't do any harm to keep them closed. Well, actually, I thoroughly dispute that. You know what, this time they have kind of said it's going to be shorter. So in some ways I'm like, okay, let's count our blessings. It looks as though it's going to be a couple of weeks as opposed to this extended lockdown, but I don't think they're definitely not helping the situation by closing them. But I'm not going to go ahead and say I'm an expert into why, we should be, it's just,
It's a difficult subject because, COVID is a very new thing, and it's not like there was a book you could read on how to handle this situation. Mm-hmm. But I do agree in the sense of what you're saying there, with their reasoning being sort of very like there could be no harm done in trying. It's a very sort of surface level reasoning without really knowing much about why you wouldn't want to do that. And my biggest thing would be COVID in and of itself, based on what the science of how, when you look at the percentage of people that get it and the way in which they get it, less than 1% of the cases come from gyms. And there's been, I heard a statistic of, something like 30 plus million gym users since COVID started going to gyms, and there's been less than 1% of the cases from there. And then you look at, the effects it had on mental health and things like that, but also COVID in itself is a health crisis based on the fact that a lot of the people that do, get it and suffer from it have a pre-existing condition or have had a less sort of healthy lifestyle. You barely see people like yourself or Colin Campbell getting COVID. And
he got it. No, he was in isolation. Yeah. But this is the thing, you're totally right. If you are healthy to the extent whereby it will affect you less, you'll be able to shake it off like you would you'd hope any kind of viral infection, or that because you as a healthy individual have a higher immunity, that you should really be able to shake these things off. Yeah. What I would also say as well, my comment would be, if you're feeling a little bit sick, do you think you're really going to go to the gym? Do you really feel like going to the gym? It's not really your first port of call, is it? Like if I'm feeling a little bit, I can't be arsed. Like I'm probably, I'm not going to then go for a really, really heavy leg day. I'm probably going to take a rest day that day, and I might see if I'm feeling better tomorrow. Like it's just not the kind of natural thing. And I think, when people go to gyms, what do they think we do? Like if anyone comes too near me in a gym in a normal capacity, I'm a bit like, why are you so close? Like, whereas it's just not, I don't know. I think our gym in particular, maybe I'm biased, but they've been so good. They've completely stepped up to the plate in terms of the hygiene. We're very fortunate. We've got a really big space, a big airy kind of, imagine a massive warehouse kind of space. So by the nature of it, it's light, it's bright, it's airy, and they've just really gone, I believe, above and beyond when it comes to the cleaning and keeping on top of that and making sure that everyone feels comfortable. And hats off to them, because it's been a pleasure really to be in there.
I've been to 2 gyms and I've had the same experience, so they've been really on the ball and really making sure that everything's in place. But I do want to say that I don't mean to belittle anyone that struggles from COVID. I know that it's a real thing and it is a serious thing, and it's affected a lot of people. I know this especially because a lot of my friends are higher risk with different conditions and through different wheelchair football and different sports like that. So it is something that's affecting people's lives very, very much so. But my point is more so that wouldn't this be the perfect time for the government and people like that in leadership positions to emphasise health and we're talking about vaccines and all that, which is great, which is needed for the people that I've spoke about, like that are more exposed and more likely to get it, regardless of any fitness level. That is a real thing as well. But in terms of our overall population, like there's been no information as to being healthy, like living a healthier lifestyle, being more active, these kind of things. It's a time to really push as to why that's important. It's not just to look good on Instagram. It's an overall lifestyle, and I feel as though they've kind of missed the opportunity to sort of emphasise that as much as they could have done. And what do you see that as something that maybe doesn't get pushed enough? The idea of actually what you could do as an individual to be more healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, actually. I suppose as well, it feeds very well into, we talked about this just before we jumped on the call, my approach to coaching generally, ladies, and I work predominantly with working professional females, I should probably say as well, mainly because it's what I know, it's what I was, so I stay in my lane in that regard. So when women come to me, and don't get me wrong, a lot of the time it is for aesthetic reasons, and it is for, particularly younger clients, anyone kind of under 25, it'll be, I want this bum from Instagram. I want, these abs that I've seen online. Like it does happen. What I tend to find though, is that once you scratch the surface of the aesthetic goals, there are generally more deep-rooted ones underneath there. And those are the ones that I'm actually interested in. Whether it be the most common thing that you'll hear after the aesthetic goals is that, oh my God, I have so much more energy, or I feel so much more confident, or, my relationship is so much better. And I'm so I suppose what I'm approaching this at is more from a holistic point of view, in that, yes, I do believe the fitness industry by its nature is always going to have this surface level of aesthetics. Of course it is. But very, very quickly you find that the layers below of things like the confidence, of the health, of the improved energy to be around your other half, better sex life, better relationships with your friends, happier when you've got, like, these things they come very, very quickly, and the aesthetics tend to then take a back seat. And actually the way that you present yourself and the way that you feel, the way that your body is moving, the way that you're fueled becomes so much more important. And from a health perspective, we do need to focus on that a little bit more. And I think it comes though. I think it's one of these things that once your mindset changes to, okay, I'm not going to hire this trainer and in 4 weeks I'm going to be shredded. We work a lot on the mindset kind of thing. We work on, why do people want to get in shape? What's going on there? The deeper rooted side of things. I'm quite holistic in my approach to that. And generally speaking, I'll work with women for, they come to me thinking it's going to be a couple of weeks, and then they're still here a year later. It tends to be how it works.
It's so important, because everything you said there, everything you're doing is almost a different look at it, and a better sort of way of looking at the long-term way of actually seeking the results, is because there seems to be this sort of misinterpretation that the gym is about the aesthetics, like you say, but isn't the way you feel, shouldn't that be the priority? And shouldn't there be more information about how the benefits of the mind and why it's exercise and feeling positive and not being depressed do go hand in hand. And there are different levels to depression, different levels to mental health, obviously, where you're not just going to go to the gym and everything's going to be fine after that. But it's a matter of recognising and encouraging these things that people can do that would allow that sort of healthier, happier lifestyle?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think the gym, let's use the gym as an example, I prefer to think of it as more of a tool in a tool belt of things that you could equip yourself with to combat against issues regarding mental health. Now, I'm going to be really, really careful because mental health and anxiety, depression, all these things can be completely different depending on, the spectrum in terms of who you're talking to or to the degree in which you may experience this. So I'm going to be really, really careful. But what I would say is that the way I like to think about it is building up almost a really, really good relationship with yourself, whereby you start to learn and understand what works for you specifically. And I'll refer back to that toolkit or the tool belt, whereby exercise might be one portion of, something that is going to work for you. Maybe another instrument might be going for a walk during the day. Maybe another one might be improving your eating habits. Maybe another one might be absorbing yourself in a podcast or a book or something that takes you completely out of the situation. Another one might be walking your dog. But what I would like to think and what I like to encourage people to do is build up this toolkit of options. And when it comes to points where you might be feeling a little bit lower, where you might not be feeling yourself, choose the one that's most appropriate. But to do that, you need to build this relationship with yourself where you know what works for you. And that's about being completely honest and about saying, like, I accept that I have these periods of, ups and downs, peaks and troughs, or that maybe last time when this happened, this made me feel a lot better. Last time when this happened, this was what I did. And really call upon that. And I think maybe this is a little bit controversial. I think people are quite quick to say, oh, if something's wrong, go and open up to someone else and go and talk about it. And yeah, I think that is a really good way to deal with it. But I also think you have to have a degree of, right, okay, I need to pull myself out of this a little bit. And this is what I'm going to do about it. And having these kind of options to hand, I think makes you quite mentally tough. But that's perhaps, maybe that doesn't work for everyone.
I will say this, I agree with you 100%. And the reason why is because I think I'm about to actually release a post for a future podcast of myself just talking about some things. And one of the reasons behind that was there was some times where I had done all I had been to therapy, I had got antidepressants and stuff, and I was doing everything everybody was telling me to do and talking to everybody. But still feeling like I was still the same, and there was still a problem there, and I didn't really understand why. And it was mainly because of the fact that I hadn't really had that conversation with myself quite yet. So you can reach out, and it's important to reach out, of course, but you also need to figure out what is it that's actually going on here. Why, what is it that I'm not talking to myself about and not addressing? There are you talk about kind of being honest with yourself. There's nothing harder than being honest about deep-rooted feelings you have that you don't like about yourself that you need to kind of address, and that's where I think that's where the kind of problems come is you're not encouraged to say, everybody wants to pretend everything's good all the time and that you don't have these problems, but life is full of these things, and you need to be able to, if you're feeling something that's really not good, you need to be able to look it in the face and address it. And nobody else can really do that for you, even though talking does help. You still need to do it yourself, anyway. So even though it can be slightly controversial, I hope that makes it less controversial for people.
Well, it does actually. It makes, I suppose, I always think a bit kind of like a lone wolf scenario whereby I will sort this out myself kind of thing. I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do. I think you should always have a supportive network, but it should be that support for what you are trying to do almost on your own. What I would say is sometimes parenting yourself is a big one for me. So if you feel shit, if you look at yourself and you're like, you know what, I don't feel mentally focused at work, ask yourself, have you gone outside in the last few days? Have you eaten crap for the last few days? Have you moved your body? Have you, be honest and just say, like, how is your sleep? How are all these things? Like, if you're staying up till 4 o'clock in the morning watching Netflix, and you turn around to me like this as a trainer, and you tell me you're not feeling that great, and go, well, tick the key boxes first. Don't kind of, cover yourself, parent yourself, and just say, like, am I actually doing all that I can do to put myself in the best position here? If not, get it sorted. And maybe that does sound a little bit, oh my God, I'm actually not this bad cop. Like, I'm actually not. That's the girls. I'm so like, normally I'm so kind of like, okay, let's talk about this. But actually, do you know what? Sometimes you do just need that little bit of, right, what am I doing? Am I doing all that I can do? If not, sort it.
It's very true, because like these things like sleep, sleep is something that's very not emphasized too much as an important thing, when really it's like Colin said it best. I thought he said it was like sleeping's like a superpower that people don't realize. Nothing's better than when you get good sleep.
Oh, so clients will ask me, oh, what supplements should I take? What exercise should I be doing? What this, what that? And I'm like, sleep. Honestly, like, yourself, if you've had a couple of days kind of off kilter, if your sleep's been disrupted for whatever reason, you are not the same person in the morning. Like, it's so true. Your dieting decisions are skewed. You're probably a little bit cranky. You make decisions fairly rashly. Like, it's known, and it's all been proven. Like, give yourself the best setup and just get off to sleep, put the phone down, don't even have it in the room, do all the things that you should do that are boring, that your mum would tell you to, like, I often say that, like, I don't mean to sound like your mom, but it's so true. These are basic things but the positives and the benefits that you will reap from doing them are just, well, for me, have always outweighed the slightly boring thing of putting your phone off at 9:30. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems as if like people, that's not really out there though as much. Like, if I wasn't doing a podcast and I wasn't at the gym and didn't really know much about this side of things, I wouldn't know anything about that. And it seems like people aren't putting that kind of information out there enough, where it's in terms of the mainstream, where you go, these things like sleep and being off your phone and working on yourself and what makes you tick, in terms of, like, you're talking about what works for you. It's all about actually figuring out more about yourself, beyond the sort of surface level. And
100%. I've actually had, my clients are probably bored of me talking about this, but I did a podcast recently, and I've done a couple of posts about the no notification lifestyle. So, like, turning all the notifications off your phone, whether that be, Instagram. My WhatsApp now doesn't make a noise. Some texts come through because my mum would freak out, but everything else is off. So my phone essentially makes no noise apart from a couple of texts and an alarm in the morning, and that's it. And the amount of people that have come up to me in the gym, like, not even my clients, and have said, I listened to that, I've done this, and this is, the biggest change that I've made. And this isn't fitness related. This is turning off the notifications on your phone, and the impact on anxiety, the impact on, like, your distraction, your workflow during the day is just, it increases tenfold if you just turn off all of the stuff on your phone. And what you're also saying about stuff that's not necessarily to do with fitness. I had a coaching call with a client a couple of weeks ago, and she was having kind of big problems with work in terms of, like, workload and taking on too much and feeling anxious, not having any time in the day. Now, we do fitness coaching calls to talk about their training and their nutrition, but how on earth can I start talking about rep ranges and macros and all these things when her actual anxiety and, her time management is not in a place that's going to allow her to actually focus on these things? So we have to then look at the wider picture of, okay, well, how do we structure your day a little bit more? How do we carve out time in the day for you to be getting your steps in? There's literally no point in me adding additional pressure of talking about calories and aesthetic goals when you are so caught up in what's going on. How on earth could you concentrate on that? Like, that's where I think a different kind of side of coaching is sometimes needed, that again is not to do purely with the aesthetic.
That is such a really good point, because your head's not in it. You don't really care about your form in the squat and stuff like that if you're not thinking about why you're doing it, what you're doing it for, what is it, what is your whole idea of what you're trying to accomplish here. So it's definitely an important subject, and I think things like anxiety are becoming a lot more prevalent especially in gyms and these things. Now with the COVID thing, people are going to be a lot more anxious to even get involved in the gym. Um, we spoke about social media, right, and how that has had kind of an effect on how people body image and the way people see themselves, and these sort of goals that are just not fitting to what they necessarily need, or for them to feel the best way they can feel doesn't suit the way they want to look. And do you think social media's had a big part to play in sort of the rise in anxiety and body image and things like that?
100%. 100%. I think what's unfortunately happened as well with the COVID situation is naturally people have found themselves with much more time on their hands. What do we do with more time on our hands? We pick up our phone and we scroll. And unfortunately, what I think happens is we then start to fixate, particularly if you already have a kind of niggling thought in the back of your head. I don't know, it might be anything. My thighs look a little bit big. So obviously what you think expands. Like, what are you then going to notice when you scroll through social media? Oh, she's got great thighs. My thighs don't look like that. Why do my thighs not look like that? How do I get thighs that look like that? It's just this constant stream of this narrative that just is incessantly played. And I think it drives people absolutely insane. So I think, yes, does it play a part? Yeah. It doesn't help that we have more time on our hands. I also think, and this goes back to my previous point, I don't think we help ourselves. Like, we don't help ourselves with the amount of time that we personally spend on apps like that. Like, I've tried to be a little bit more, it's affected me personally, so do something about it. Social media goes off on a Saturday afternoon, it doesn't come back on till Monday morning. I hide or don't follow accounts that I know trigger me for various reasons. It's just, and I'm also actually just quite a crap consumer of other people's content. So I'll put something on and tend to just leave it and try not and scroll through. If I'm doing something that, waiting in a queue or on a tread, okay, that's an okay time, I think, to be spending time. But I just don't think that, if you are already in that headspace, why do you think that's going to help? It's not. So don't put yourself in a position where it's going to make you feel worse. Again, okay, it doesn't help, but it can't be blamed completely.
Yeah, I do agree. And the thing is, as well, is one of the issues in this particular area for me was noticing that, addictive personalities, and the reason why I say that is, for me, I've definitely got an addictive personality, and so it's like I didn't really notice it, but I remember like last year or something, I was on my phone and it came up on my phone. You've been on your phone for 10 plus hours this week, and you read and you're like, what? That's a long time to be on your phone. I think when I said that, you put your hand up as if to say, I know exactly what you're talking about. So how do you manage that sort of addictive personality and making sure that it doesn't necessarily, because I had a long time where I was getting into the thing of, you get used to that sort of rush of, it's a hard thing to explain, but the idea of like your notifications and checking your likes and how does this angle look and what are you know, and living this sort of, I wanted to put out this false idea of what you actually are like, but just because you like getting the notifications and you like getting that feeling, and so do you see that as something that doesn't really get addressed as much? Like the sort of addicted personalities are a thing, and people and how to manage that isn't really something that gets spoke about much.
Oh, 100%. I think it needs to be something that they teach in schools. But I would actually preface this all by saying that I think social media is fantastic for so many things. Like basically, I run my business through my phone and through my laptop. I could essentially run my business through my phone and laptop. The amount of people that it's allowed me to connect with positively, who geographically I would have no way of being in contact with. I mean, the fact that we're doing this podcast is because, you know, we were connected through someone else who I was connected through a group of friends, but not through the gym, through social media. It's all just intertwined. I've just come off an hour and a half call to help me with my business with someone that I connected with. It's just over, like, the pros well outweigh the cons. So I will say that.
Yeah.
What I would say though, when it comes to that is, and how I manage it, is to be, although I do self-confess think I have quite an addictive personality, I'm also quite disciplined in that I will set rules for myself, and rules that are non-negotiables. So, okay, you can go on your phone if you have done this by this time. Like if you get to the gym 15 minutes before your session, you can go on Instagram for those 15 minutes before your session starts. This is the kind of talk that I will give myself. Like, you can do this if you do this. You can, and it keeps me in check. And practical things as well, like just keep it out of your arm, like keep it out of arm's reach. Like I say, turn everything off. You don't need to address all of that right now. Know yourself really well. Like if you are going to sit on it, just delete the app off your phone for an afternoon. Like it's not going anywhere. Literally, it's not going anywhere. But yeah, I do think we need to learn more about this. Like this should be, subject in schools. We should be talking about how, this is affecting, God knows how this is going to affect. I've got a godson and goddaughter who are, 9 or 11 and 9 or whatever age. I should know that, my God. But do you know what I mean? Like, what's it going to be like for them in 3, 4, 5 years' time?
Yeah.
And that's a scary thought.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And because I just remember coming to school not having any real clue of the way I was feeling or why I was kind of addicted to things so easily. So you just kind of come out and with the Scottish culture, you sort of dive into alcohol and dive into drugs and quite early as well. And you don't know, but nobody, like you say, educational wise, it's not really something that you spoke about in terms of this is why you shouldn't do this, and this is what these are the good ways you can figure out how to manage yourself, things like that, sort of personal development side of things. But we spoke about before we recorded about gyms and your work with. You were saying how most of your work's with women clients. Now, what is it? So we're talking about like accessibility gyms, and I was making the comparison of, women-only gyms and how that's something I've sort of recently dived into and seen a lot of women-only gyms that have really seem really cool and energetic. And in my sort of research, I was reading some things about, why are women-only gyms a thing, so to speak? Why is that sort of became a thing? And there was a story this woman told in an article where it was about how she was in the gym and there was this guy that was wanting to come over and help her check her form or something, but she was like, she knew everyone was fine with it, but he was quite a big guy and he was being quite intimidating, so she just let him anyway. And then she was talking about that feeling of just feeling as like you have to engage, so her instinctive feeling was wanting to tell me to fuck off because she's just trying to walk out and he's getting right up on her face and all that. And then she speaks about the comparison between going to a gym where it's just purely women and the different energy and the better level of comfort to be herself and work out that she felt. Do you see that as like a thing that could become more prevalent as we go on, women-only gyms, and what kind of benefits do you see from that?
I think this is a big topic, actually. And do you know what? I will be completely honest. I have been to a women's gym. Now, it doesn't even exist anymore. But when I was at uni, in Glasgow at all, there used to be, before Pure Gym Bath Street was open, there used to be a female-only Fitness First on Sauchiehall Street. Now, the only reason I went there was because it was so close to uni, as in it was literally the next street away from my university, and it was more a case of, okay, well, if I join this gym, I absolutely have to go. Like there's no, and it was the first female gym I'd ever been to. To be honest, I don't, now I'm thinking about it, I don't remember it being any different to any other gym that I've been in before. Obviously, because there's only females there, but the feeling of it, like, I don't remember feeling particularly at ease there. I don't remember feeling particularly, it was just a gym. But then perhaps maybe I've always just thought, I'm just going to the gym. But I mean, I enjoyed it as a space. I fully understand that there are not just female only gyms now, there are female only sections in more commercial gyms. So the other gym in Dundee has a female only section, whereby it's essentially, as I believe, a room off to the side where they have various kit in there. When one of my clients sent me a video of the kit that was available in there, I kind of rolled my eyes, because it's got all the things that you would expect that females would need, like something to hip thrust, an abductor, like all these things that I just thought, oh, like, of course that's what's in there. Which, I suppose in one hand it's great that it's there, but also I was just like, what? How do you characterize what girls want to train when they're in there? To be honest, I think there's two sides of this coin, though. I think, again, oh God, I'm going to sound like I'm being so harsh again. I think there's two sides to this. One, I think, yes, there can be a degree of intimidation, and I'm talking about commercial gyms. I think there can be a degree of intimidation from male members that they need to address for various reasons. But two, I do think women put glass ceilings on themselves in terms of what they think they can achieve or what they think they should be doing in a gym setting. Now, I understand both sides of it. Men, by their nature, I think, particularly, I'm just thinking of some guys in our gym, they are huge. Now, no matter what they were doing, like they're just going to be intimidating just by their stature and just by, what they're doing in the gym. Perhaps, they're working incredibly hard. The noises come out, the old, like that, it just happens. That kind of behavior, I don't think can really be helped. And they're not really doing anything other than just getting on with their workouts. However, there are men who I believe go out of their way to intimidate women. Now, this is only, again, I love the gym that I work in. It's one of the friendliest places I've ever been in. I was asked to move by a male member. You're doing hip thrusts on the floor, you're in kind of a compromising position as it is, to be a member of staff there and be asked to move by a male member with a group of friends was a little bit, I just did it because I didn't know what else to do. If I'm completely honest, because it's not something that I'm normally faced with, and also not something that would normally bother me. But I do remember thinking, wait, hold on here. So I do think there's things that men just, especially when they're in groups, need to just be a little bit aware of their presence. Maybe they're not doing anything particularly, maybe they're just, but think about it. If your girlfriend, sister, wife, whatever, would you want them feeling in any way intimidated in the space that they were in? Probably not. So just maybe kind of keep in check your own, the way that you are in the gym. But equally, I don't think that women give themselves enough credit for, one, what they're capable of doing in the gym. And they shouldn't just feel as if they have to stay in the functional area and pick 5-kilogram dumbbells off the ground and just move. Like, I do think that it's a knowledge thing. If you're not sure about what you're doing or you're not confident enough, get a trainer for a couple of sessions, make sure that you're equipped with the knowledge. But yeah, I don't think that women need to feel as though they can't do anything. Or that there's nothing in the gym that they shouldn't be doing. There's nothing that a guy does in the gym that you wouldn't be able or shouldn't be doing. It's just about knowing how to go about doing that.
I completely understand what you're saying there when you say about how you're going into the functional area and they have the same sort of bits of equipment that you're thinking, oh, I can't do. I think they're only allowing me to do a certain particular type of workout. But do you know, and when you talk about women sort of limiting themselves to those sort of things and not saying I can do these things, it's not I'm allowed to do whatever I want to do in the gym. But do you not think that that's kind of because of the social kind of construct that we built around what the image that's portrayed about what you're supposed to look like, and what, it's as if you can't. If you a woman, it's strange to go in and do bicep curls rather than doing squats. You know what I mean? It's that I feel like that issue, like I totally get what you're saying in terms of them limiting themselves, which makes sense. But also, I also think that that's maybe possibly built in from what they're told they're supposed to be, rather than allowing to express yourself fully to figure out what it is you actually want to do.
Yep.
I don't know if that makes sense entirely, but
the only reason I'm kind of laughing is because, like, it's like you go into, and what I will say as well, we're really fortunate where we are. Our particular weights area is not in any way, it doesn't have any barriers around it, which I think is one of the most, it's amazing. It's fully open plan. You can walk over to it. It has a different floor, which might put people off, but it doesn't have this like physical barrier whereby you have to enter a specific weights room. And I'll go ahead and say that I think the actual layout and the design does play a part. Like I've been in gyms before where you essentially have to go down into a rabbit hole that is the weights room. Everyone sees you walk in, and I get why that would be a little bit intimidating. So we're really, really lucky where we are. And even then, the girls will sometimes refer to it as the boys bit, or, oh, I don't know if I can go over there, meaning the bit where all the plate loaded kit is and all the bench presses are and squat racks. That's essentially what they mean. But it takes, generally speaking, it takes one PT session of like kind of one visit over to the squat rack to break down that barrier. It doesn't take a lot. And, the sense of accomplishment they get once, we've gone over there and, they've squatted something heavier than the 20 kg pre-weighted barbell in the functional area, like that feeling of accomplishment and the look that they have is amazing. But going back to what you said, do I think that, yes, I think that there's a definite, you're a female, therefore you squat and you do hip thrusts. I will be honest, I probably bicep curl and do more press ups in a week than I do any kind of lower body work, probably to my detriment. But it's because, you can say it's personal preference, you can say I do think that females are scared to train upper body. I do think they're perhaps a look that people go for. I like a very muscular physique, and when I mean muscular, I mean like all over, but that's personal preference. That's I would never force that on someone. And if that's not your goals, it's not your goals.
But that's the point, though. The point really is that you're almost not encouraged to focus on what your personal preference is, and more so what the box you're supposed to be in, type of thing.
Yeah. Do you know what actually in practice tends to happen is that women will take a kind of approach to training. They'll start to see some muscle development on their upper body and they will love it and they want to do more. That's generally how it works. They think that they want to do squats all the time. They do like a couple of shoulder days and go, oh, look at this. And then suddenly, So, but that's, finding your own path and not having something dictated to you about what you should want. We spoke about this before. Like, do people actually want what they see, or do they think that they want it because of good marketing? They're two different things.
Exactly. And it all comes from the image that mainstream media puts out there. Now, I want to make clear for anyone listening that they're probably thinking, he's not a woman, what is he talking about? He doesn't. But I think a lot of the feelings of what we spoke about just then, the reason why I feel aware of them is through disability and through being a wheelchair user, just because there's different feelings, different experiences but similar feelings, in the sense of, like, when I first went into a gym, for example, I remember I did some push-ups. I came off the chair and I was doing push-ups on my knees and then did some back ropes, and then I looked around and all of a sudden a wee crowd gathered. Like 4 or 5 people just watching me do it, and I'm like, can I help you with something? So it's this sort of idea of we're kind of also put in this box of it's weird that he's even here. He shouldn't be able to do any of this stuff, and also when you talked about setting yourself, like women setting themselves limitations, I would say the same thing for disabled people. And I only say disabled people because it's the term that's used that everyone knows about, but it's not something I necessarily agree with. because it's like the name of the podcast is all about ability, which is basically a dig at the fact that disability, in my mind, it doesn't really exist. It's more a social. It's more to do with the accessibility than it is to do with the physical disability, and that comes back to the point of women where it's about the access to the fitness and saying we don't have to just do squats and hip thrusts. It can be whatever we want it to be. And I relate to the fact that women gyms are there because for me it's like this idea of like thinking to myself, well, there's been times where I have felt uncomfortable in gyms where I feel like people are watching me and they're scared in case I drop something, or they look at me as if I'm like a wee Bambi or something, you know.
I'll ask you, when that crowd, like when people gathered around when you were on the battle ropes, how did that make you feel?
I didn't really know how to feel. It was my first workout ever. I'd never done anything.
Oh my God. And that happens.
Yeah, it was really. Also, do you know as well, right? You go in and nothing's really set for you. There was like this look of, I'm not going to name the gym or anything because I don't want to put anyone down. That's not what this is about. But there was this look from the trainers and everybody when I came in that was like, oh my God, what are we going to do with this guy? It was the overall access to the equipment and things like that wasn't, I needed help. And I didn't know anything about fitness or what to do. So I just got off the chair and started doing bodyweight stuff and just grabbing weights and shoving them about and lifting things and hoping that would do the trick and just sort of learning as it went on. But there was this sort of feeling of, you kind of, I shouldn't be here. You know.
Can I make some comments about that? I would honestly think it would be, and this is just from the way I would see it as a trainer, I don't think personally that has anything to do or would have had anything to do with you at all. I would think it would be a lack of confidence from the trainer's perspective, purely because they won't have been equipped or they won't know enough to, or have the experience to have had someone with a disability or who uses a chair before. It's just not something that is touched on enough in the courses. The other thing I think is, it's a confidence thing. They won't have known. They won't have known how to make those adaptations. And can I be completely blunt as well? A lot wouldn't have had the balls or the creativity to perhaps approach you and say, listen, I've never done this before, but I'd love to learn more. Would you be willing to let me help you? And that's the thing that I would love to see a little bit more. The second thing that I was going to say, when we discussed that we were going to do this, obviously I've been in the gym a little bit more the last little while, and I've been thinking about us jumping on this podcast. There was a guy the other day in the gym. Oh, I'm sure I can say this. He was doing med ball slams and he had a prosthetic arm. And he was doing med ball slams in the gym. And I could not stop staring, but in a way that I was just like, oh my God, that is the most amazing thing that I've ever seen. And I really wanted to go and say, like, what do you say? Like, do you say that's amazing that you can do that? Like, it seems so. They equally don't stare because you don't want to make it seem as though, but I was honestly just transfixed. I was just like, that is the most. We've also got, I think, 2 guys that have prosthetic legs. I don't think, and you mentioned about the equipment as well. This is actually something that comes up for me more with clients who are particularly short. So what you often find is that, well, if you think about it, any of the equipment in any commercial gym is meant to fit, me, but also a 6'4", 100K male. So there's always going to be discrepancies in terms of how to use the equipment. There's always ways around it. But again, I think it comes down to creativity, like obviously safety, but I think people just need to be a little bit more willing to think outside the box. And I think that goes from, females to disability to anyone who's using a gym.
You're exactly right. And that thing you were talking about look, you kind of sort of in awe by it because you don't really, you're like, that's amazing that he's doing that. That was something that I came to kind of enjoy. But as you were talking about how women sort of set limitations for themselves as to what they can do and they put into this sort of, like I said before, box of what they should be doing, that is something that I feel like disabled people also need to take an account of. We need to put ourselves more out there, and it's, I don't think it's necessarily anyone meant it in a bad way, but it's just such a lack of awareness or a lack of, I've never seen this before, I don't usually see this kind of thing. But my kind of sort of question that I'm shouting for the rooftops to the world is, why don't you see it? And how can we make this more like sort of normalised, for lack of a better word, where it's like you see these people more often doing these things?
What would you want trainers to do more of? What would you want, like, I'm asking, like, actually asking for what would you want to see more trainers doing in a gym capacity?
That's a good question. I think for me, it would, from just a one-to-one, just ask questions. I know that you don't know, and the only way you're going to know is by asking the questions. And don't be afraid to ask the questions. I've been in a wheelchair my whole life, and it's like, people are like, I don't really want to ask this, but what is it that, why just ask the question? If you don't know, ask. And that's, like you say, it's about having the guts to say, I'm going to go and talk to this guy and figure out what it is he can. Because there are, things that you need to adapt, right? Obviously. But it's just a matter of like, and then in terms of the actual gyms themselves, have space and also be approachable because a lot of people have disabilities that don't go to gyms is because of the fact that they, you go into a gym and it's you can't get all the equipment you need yourself. So let's say you're in a manual chair and you're wheeling the chair, or you're like myself in a power chair, and you try to steer the chair. It's hard to do that while carrying a dumbbell from here to here, or things like that. So I would say ask questions and then be open and available for if I need a hand with something. Because that was the biggest barrier for me at the start, was definitely needing to ask for help and then reluctantly doing it, and then getting this sort of reaction, this sort of like negative feeling from them that was like, I need to go and do this for this guy. You know what I mean? And it's like having that sort of, don't make me feel bad because your gym's not accessible. So it's but it doesn't, I don't think anyone's necessarily been a bad person. It's more so the fact that it's not necessarily out there. And that's, and I can feel like a lot of similarities between what you said about women that set that limitation compared to disabled people that set that limitation.
I think as well, the more I suppose we are aware of it, and the more it's normalized, and it would be amazing to see more shapes and sizes and all sorts in the gym. I mean, you can even say that to people who are incredibly overweight in the gym. I mean, I'm sure it must be a very, very uncomfortable feeling. But if you think about the amount of guts that it takes for someone who, they're trying to do something about it, it's the best place for them to be. And why shouldn't they be there? And I do always make sure that, I'm at least appearing very open and approachable, because that must be a very, very terrifying experience. And, good on them for taking that step. And it's you don't know why people go to the gym. People go for a number of different reasons. And, it shouldn't be a different experience for anyone, irrespective of, what the situation might be.
Exactly. But see, just saying that, something came to my head, which was when we were talking about how genetics and how women will have this thing where they'll see, or guys as well, they'll see just a specific body image and they'll be like, but it's not necessarily what's healthiest for them, but it's what they've been told is what looks healthy. And for me, that is a big issue for any sort of disabled person, where you right away, because you're in a wheelchair, right away, no matter what shape you're in, you don't fit that image. You know what I mean? So it's very like disheartening of, even if I get to the absolute peak physical condition, I won't look like that because I'm not going to be able to run, and I'm not going to be able to do, you know, X, Y, Z. And so that's like, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm talking about. Before I got into the gym, this is the way I thought about it. This was kind of stopped me from starting doing it. Was this idea that I am not because I can't. This is maybe sort of a deep philosophical point, but the point is that I'm not complete because I can't walk, or I'm not necessarily normal enough to achieve these goals. You know what I mean? So it's sort of breaking down that idea of what is image, and why does it, you know, it doesn't really, you don't have to have all the abilities like walking or hearing or seeing to be able to be considered normal. I don't know if that made entirely sense there, but
Well, I guess, you know, the main thing that I think about that is that that comes down to, I think, external versus internal projection. So what you think externally, what's imposed on you, versus internally, how you develop as a person. So, you know, you might say, okay, well, just even for instance, like you might say, okay, well, I'm never going to have a six-pack abs, for instance, but you might say, but look how much flatter my stomach is compared to, you know, a year ago. I'm just using that as an example, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's all about, I think, self-driven goals. And, you know, you can say this perfect image, but then, you know, what's a perfect image for you? It doesn't apply. You know, I'm never going to, you know, be this like massive ass, like, but it's just genetically, it just doesn't work. Like, I'm just not going to look like that Instagram girl. So all I can do is say, okay, well, how have I improved versus me a couple of weeks, months, a year ago? And I think internalizing goal setting like that is so important. And again, it comes back to, what are you consuming? What are you looking at? Comparison's a thief of joy, like all of these things. Like, you need to just, I think, be really focused on what's important to you and not what everyone says you should be focused on.
exactly. And also, it's worth pointing out the fact that I know plenty of people that can walk and run and do all these things that are miserable. And I know people.
The most miserable I've ever been is with a six-pack. Legitimately, like, honestly, the smallest I've ever weighed is the most miserable I've ever been. Don't judge. Like, Instagram's a highlight reel. Please remember that. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Because you have this idea of once I get that, like once I do enough squats and once I get the abs and once I, you know, or for me when I was young in a more sort of more, for lack of a better word, unrealistic way, once I can walk, I'll be totally fit. You know what I mean? That all these things, once I get this, I'll be happy. It's not about that. It's about enjoying the process of getting to that point. And actually understanding why you're doing it, you know?
Why you're doing it, because the process doesn't end. It really doesn't end. And the thing is, and once you get to where you're going to go, you just move the goalposts. That's all it is. Like, once you get there, they move. I think it's just accepting that and being like, okay, well, you are never going to get to the end point. So you might as well just knuckle down and just enjoy it. Because...
Well, so this year's been kind of a unusual, unpredictable kind of year, and you've managed to maintain sort of a good routine and good way of thinking through it. What would you say to people that are kind of maybe struggling now with the gym being shut and keeping their routine? What's the number one thing that they need to focus on in terms of making sure they keep themselves on a level keel throughout this whole kind of turbulent time?
Specifically in terms of routine? Or...
Yeah, in terms of routine, because I've met a lot of people that have been struggling with just the gyms are shut and takeaways are still open, and there's the public, every sort of social aspect. A lot of it is very, you know, you're closed off and not able to get there. So, is there any particular things you're doing right now that would help if the gym's taken away from you in terms of like keeping yourself there? What would be the number one thing you would say to people?
Well, anyone who knows me or knows anything about how I operate, I'm a big 5 a.m. get up and go kind of person. I like the 5 a.m. start. between 5 and 6, I don't turn on my phone. I will, read something personal development wise. I will read something that's going to kind of further my business, whether that be, something to do with muscle building or, marketing or something like that, that allows me to kind of set myself up for the day. When it comes to, obviously, fortunately, my gym is still open, which is amazing. But what I would say to people is schedule your day as much as you can. So don't be leaving things to chance per se. I love Google Calendars. Everything's always mapped out. And, I kind of admitted I'm a bit of a type A personality. If you looked at my Google Calendar, you'd think I was an absolute psychopath. Everything is blocked out in, time stamps and programmed in. But because if it didn't happen that way, I would lose my actual mind. Keep structure, break things up, steps in the morning, steps in the afternoon, steps in the evening if you can. Get a workout in, program in a call with your friends to keep you accountable on those walks. Make sure that you're eating well, that you're factoring in time for meal prep. Basically, set yourself up with as much structure as you can to make sure that you're not just kind of floating along and expecting things to happen, because the bottom line is that they just won't, to be honest. That's more from a practical point of view. From an emotional and kind of mindset side of things, I know we're not intending that it won't be as long this time, which is great. But what I would say is control the controllables. So certain things you just do not have any control over. So don't even try. You only have so much energy in the day. Like, think of it like a pie chart. Like, if you're a MyFitnessPal user, think of it as like your pie chart. You only have so much energy in the day. Do not dedicate a big chunk of that pie chart to stuff that you have zero control over. Just put it to the back of your head and just concentrate on what you can do. Don't stress about whether, so-and-so's wedding is going to be on in April and whether you have enough time to get dressed. No, concentrate on today and what you can do to make yourself feel great today. And like I say, it's being a little bit honest with yourself, parenting yourself a little bit. If ordering 5 takeaways a week is going to make you feel like shit, don't do it. But if, organizing with your other half that on a Friday night, you're going to eat something, different, you're going to have a nice night, you're going to enjoy a glass of wine, sit down, watch TV, relax, do that. But not if it's going to make you feel awful by doing it every single night of the week. That was such a
I thought that was a fantastic point to finish on, to be honest. And I loved what you said about control the controllables. That's a great way of putting it. Because you do get caught up in the idea of like, I'm always thinking I need to do more, but you do need to focus on, it's great to focus on the future and what you want to achieve and maybe reflect on the past and things you need to do better, but also, what about today? Today is important as well.
I just finished reading The Power of Now, and it's like, and actually I messaged Colin about this because I was like, have you read this? It's so unlike any kind of book that he would like. It's very like, concentrate on the being in the present, and for someone, myself included, who is so like efficiency, structure, get loads done, it's quite difficult to take a message like that on board, because you find it very difficult to settle into like, just enjoy the now, because you're always thinking, right, what can I fit into now? What can I fit in the next 5 minutes? But it's a very deep read. So The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is
I'm definitely going to go on that. You just decided my next book.
Well, there you go. Have a read of it, but I would say read it with a very open mind, because it's it's about spiritual enlightenment, which is not something I thought I would be into at all. I like systems and efficiency, but it's worth it. It's a challenge to think differently. Put it that way.
Exactly. Have you ever read the book called 7 Habits of Effective People?
No.
By Stephen R. Covey?
No.
Get on that. You'll love that. I love that book. I've said this on so many different times in different podcasts and said that book has changed my life. Stephen R. Covey, The 7 Habits of Effective People. I thought that was brilliant.
Right now, just now I am reading Thinking Fast and Slow, Why We Sleep, and 1984. So I can't concentrate on one thing at once. It's all of them. Different books for different times of the day.
That's where that addictive personality comes into play in a good way.
Cost me a lot on Amazon. That's what.
Exactly. So I've got to say, this has been felt really easy and a really fun conversation. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank
And
you. To say it's different to be on this side of it rather than being the one asking questions. So thank you so much for having me. I am,
I felt as if I feel like I could talk to you about so many other things for others, but
we'll do round two.
I'm sure we'll have yeah, definitely. I would love to do that. So where can everybody find you social media wise and stuff?
Where can you find me? You can find me I'm mostly active on Instagram. You can find me at coaching.with.Caroline. So it's Coaching with Caroline. Where else? I am on my own podcast is called Coaching with Caroline, The Extras. And you can find that wherever you get your podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. What I always say to people, it started off as voice notes to clients. So all my clients will know I'm a big voice noter. And it basically, they were getting too long. So I had to find somewhere to put them. And then basically that's expanded into getting people on, having chats, interviews, etc. So the first couple are just me chatting away. Thereafter, it gets a little bit more interesting. But yeah, you can find me there and you can find me mostly on Instagram as well.
That is also, I would highly recommend listening to your podcast because it's really informative. I've learned a lot from it. So I'm enjoying all the work you're doing. What actually, what I wanted to ask you as we're saying off here, you've obviously been doing this for a while and achieved a lot. Do you have anything in your mind where you go, I want to kind of, this is my plan to go on further. Have you got anything in your mind? Because I'm always thinking, what's next for you in terms of developing?
In terms of development, I think, do you know what? I am looking forward to spending a couple of weeks, as I say, over Christmas, taking stock. Like I have not stopped. I've not taken any time off since August 2019. And I'm going to take some time this Christmas to take stock of the business, see where I'm at, how can I streamline things so I can help more women. There's only one of me. Like I need to be able to make, how can I help more people and still function as a human? Like you need to, that old thing of, fix your own mask before helping someone else with theirs. Like, you need to be firing on all cylinders, and I want to be able to maintain that and keep doing what I do. Like I said, I love what I do, and I want to keep loving it. So to be honest, it's going to be a couple of weeks of taking stock, and we're going to fire into January. And yeah, do you know what? I'm really looking forward to next year. Hopefully a lot of this will be behind us, and I will get a full run at actually doing my job, which would be wonderful. Would be really, really great just to have some normality for a whole year.
Yeah, I know. I think we all feel the same as that for sure. And I actually really relate to what you were saying there about the whole kind of finding the right balance and things, because in trying to help more people, that's really what I'm trying to do with the podcast now. I've got to a point where it's going well, but I'm always thinking, how can I get more people? How can I reach more people? And you are only one person as well, like you said. Yeah. So you do need to recharge the battery sometimes.
Yeah, as much as you want to be kind of superhuman, you have to remember, and I have to keep saying this to myself, you are not a machine. Like, I think I can train 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day, and, work with clients and run social media and do a podcast and you're going to break. Like it's not possible. So this is something that I am personally working an awful lot more on, is learning how to program in, downtime, whatever that means.
Very true, very true. Well, thank you, Caroline. This has been great.
Thank you so much, Kieran. We'll catch up really soon, okay?
A reminder that this podcast is sponsored by Kyle Financial, who are currently offering free wills for everyone, even if you're not a client. Don't be in the 60% of adults that are will. Call Kyle Financial on 0141 447 0290 or email advice@kylefinancial.co.uk for more information.
Hope you all enjoyed that episode. I found Caroline really easy to talk to, and I think we covered a lot of different interesting subjects. I hope that people were able to take something from them. Next week, we'll be joined by Dan Highcock, professional basketball player as well as nutritionists and online coaches as well. So we covered a lot of different interesting things as well. So hopefully you find that a benefit, and he was a really cool guy to talk to. So I'll catch you next week. Have a good week. Hopefully things can open back up for us soon and we can all enjoy Christmas together. Who knows? Stay positive and try and get as much done as you can. Thank you for listening.